The odds of you ever selling a business for $5 million even one time is almost zero. So you would be insane to be an entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a guest on from Cincinnati, which Cincinnati is known as the Queen City. I'll concede that title for this episode for my guest, because as you know, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is also known as the Queen City, but today we'll concede it to Cincinnati. But I'm happy to have Tarek on. He's a founder, a CEO, also a TED Talk speaker. So I'm looking forward to hearing about his business and all the awesome things that he's doing and the wisdom that he has to share. Welcome to the show, Tarek.
Terrell, thanks for having me on. It's good to talk to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Tarek, tell us a little bit about, your background before you started your business.
So let's see. It's really in software engineering. So I started my background writing software when I was 12.
Wow.
Just super nerdy, grew up that way, self-taught, and then went to undergrad for pre-med, which I hated. So I hated every second of it. And then I didn't realize back then that people would pay you to write software. And so after I graduated with a degree in psychology and a double minor in chemistry and biology, it's like, I'm not going to do anything with this. I realized people would pay you to write software, which was mind-blowing to me. And so that's really how my career began, was in the world of software. And then I did that for a big company for 6 years. And then after 6 years, so I guess I'm 27, quit and started my first company, and really haven't looked back since. Been an entrepreneur ever since.
Awesome. So what was it like kind of taking that step out, leaving what you were doing to start your own company?
To me, well, this is the other part to that story, is I was married and had a 3-month-old.
Oh, wow.
And my wife was not working at the time, and I have a newborn.
Okay.
And so I tell her, hey, so I think I want to quit my corporate job to start a business. And where this all came from is after my junior year of college, where it was 3 years of pre-med and it was miserable. It was at that point in my life where it's like, I just don't want to have any regrets. So something clicked for me at the age of whatever it was, 20 or 21. I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to get to the end of the line saying, I wish I would have, and then it's too late. And so I'm always thinking about that is your biggest, in my mind, that is my biggest potential failure, is regret. It isn't the actual something didn't work out. It is that you didn't even try. And so I'm thinking, I want to start a business. And if I keep putting this off, it's going to get harder and harder, more and more kids, cars, and expenses. When are you ever going to take this jump? And so I took the jump, and my thinking was, if this doesn't work out, I can always just get a corporate job again. I didn't see it as a huge risk. Now, people from the outside are always like mind blown that you're quitting a corporate job with a newborn and a house and a wife and no other source of income. Now, when they hear that, that's crazy talk, right? That doesn't make sense to them. But for me, I didn't think anything of it. It's like, I just don't want to have any regrets. That's my biggest fear in life, is regret. So wasn't a thing for me. Just did it and haven't looked back.
Awesome, awesome. So what was the type of business that you started, your first one?
So the first one was a custom software shop. So basically it was all these companies in and around Cincinnati that they want to do things with technology, and their internal processes might be too expensive or too slow. And so I thought there's an opportunity for us to come in and help them achieve what they're looking to achieve much more quickly. And I like that idea of just attacking new problems constantly. It was never about outsourcing talent or placing people. It was really about, what's your problem? What are you trying to achieve? And then we'll come in as the experts understanding technology and talk about different options for you to get there, and then actually build the solution in a way that you can now be successful going forward.
Mm-hmm. And I found that in interviewing a lot of business owners that you came across a problem, or just that drive to solve problems becomes a very, very common trait in a lot of successful entrepreneurs.
I would totally agree. Whenever I speak with young entrepreneurs or college students, I talk to them about their motivation for wanting to be an entrepreneur. And I always begin the conversation with, well, how many of you watch Shark Tank? And everybody raises their hands. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool, to be Mark Cuban and have your own private jet and drive a Maserati? And how many of you want to start a business so you can have those things? That's your primary motivation for starting a business. And then some number of students will keep their hands raised. And when I dig deeper, I say, but the odds of you ever having that level of success starting a business are almost zero. Mm-hmm. The odds of you making, if it's money is your motivation, you should work at a big company. Yeah. It's stable, and the salaries they pay their executives, where they're making $5, 10, 15, $20 million or more a year as an executive in a big company. The odds of you ever selling a business for $5 million even one time is almost zero. So you would be insane to be an entrepreneur if money is your motivation. And then they'll ask me, why do you start a business then? And the real answer is because you can't help yourself. You see something in the world that should exist, and it bothers you that it doesn't. You see something that's done inefficiently, and it keeps you awake at night because you have these thoughts in your head, there's a better way to do this. And it isn't that you're motivated by money, it is you're motivated by bringing this thing to life. And all that is involved with that, the problem solving, the marketing of it, the getting people to understand your idea, that's what motivates really successful entrepreneurs. And you'll notice that it becomes a pattern with them. Once they've figured out and they brought this thing to life, then they get bored and they want to do it again. They see other problems, and that's just who they are. They're wired that way. So I do like to draw this distinction in the beginning. What does a successful entrepreneur look like? They love to work. They love to solve problems. They see the world a different way. And they are not motivated by money at all. It's just, if that happens, that's great, but that's not why I do this.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I think that is very, very good, which I think it brings me to when I was watching your TED Talk, I think when it was at Xavier University. You talked about how passion becomes the cure for becoming a zombie. Like, how did you come up with that title and kind of that angle?
Well, I think this was, when I did that 7 years ago, 2013. And so if you remember back then, Walking Dead was this brand new show, and it's super popular and kind of zombies. And I was watching Walking Dead, and it dawns on me that there's a lot of people that have become zombies in their professional lives, and some in their personal lives too, but mostly professionally, where they are doing something just for a check. It's a mindless thing. They're just walking. It is just existing from check to check. And they're not really fed by it. It's more, this is my life, and I have bills to pay, and I have to do this, but it doesn't really excite me. And I saw the correlation between people that are in that type of work and The Walking Dead and zombies. Same thing. They're just motivated by, I just need to get to my next meal.
Wow.
And professionally, people are motivated. I just need to get to my next check. But there's no other purpose in their life. And I never want to be there. I don't like that for anybody. I don't like that for my friends or colleagues or whatever. But getting them to think differently and to take some risk, and not framing the risk as, oh, you're going to fail or you could fail, framing it as, what if you never try? What if you have this idea and you never even tried to go after it? How does that make you feel? And then they get excited. It's like, you're right. What is the worst case scenario? And so that's where I started to draw the correlations. And I don't want people to be zombies, but that was the genesis of that talk, is really find something that motivates you, and to the point where you're afraid of missing out and you don't want to live with regret.
Mm-hmm. So with bringing that passion, kind of your background in software and just your drive to solve problems, that brings us to current day. Talk about your current business that you are founded and that you're running, and what services and products that business offers.
Sure. So it's pretty consistent with everything that we've already discussed, where I was on my kid's school board here in Cincinnati, and I love public education, which is why I decided to take that role. And I noticed, even in the small community in Cincinnati, that people were disengaged with what we were doing as a school district. And I couldn't understand, why is that? Why are you disengaged? And when I researched the problem, because that's how my brain works, I realized it's that not that they don't care. It's not that they're apathetic. It is that they're underwater. Wow. And so then I keep researching. And I thought, why is that? Well, if you think back to 2007, the iPhone was released in 2007. And what that did is it opened floodgates of communication. So if you think about it now, so you've got the iPhone or smartphones, you've got social media, you've got Facebook taking off, Twitter taking off, YouTube taking off. So you've got all these things. Now I've got this device in my pocket where people are creating tremendous amounts of content and they can reach me all the time. So people are underwater. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, how do I break that cycle? I really want our community to know what we're doing as a school district. And so I looked at the brands that do a great job of engagement. Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Spotify, Pandora. They all do the same thing. They're all looking at Terrell and they're saying, what is he doing? How do we tailor that experience just for him? So if you think about any of those brands that I just mentioned, as far as you know, you're their only customer, because everything is tailored to you. The website is tailored to you. Mobile, desktop, emails, everything is tailored to you based on what you like, your behavior. And so they have figured out how to break the code of disengagement. And so I thought, why can't we do that with communication? Why isn't everything tailored to the recipient? Wow. And so it's taking the Netflix model, and what I wanted to do is say, hey, we as a school district are producing lots of content, but not all of it is applicable to you. Do you really care what the band is doing if your kid's not in band? Probably not. Do you care that, so for you, if, for example, maybe there's a careers in marketing and communication at the high school, because it's something that you're passionate about, even though your kid's not in the high school. But wouldn't you want to know that so you can go talk to those students because it's something you care about? That has been the miss. So what we've always done historically is we push everything to everyone, and then we expect the recipient to filter through it. Wow. And say, oh, that's meaningful to me. So schools communicate this way, universities communicate this way, everybody communicates this way. And I thought, why don't we break it down where each piece of content is like a movie on Netflix, and it can be routed to you based on your behavior. Oh, this person's engaged with lots of content around the band. Well, this content should be high priority for them because I can clearly see that's interesting to you. It's exactly what Netflix does, what Amazon does when they add new movies or products. It's tailored to you. I don't know every time they add every new show on Netflix, but I get an email probably once a week that says, hey, we've added a new movie that you might like.
Okay.
So they're not sending me everything. They're very specific about how they talk to me. And now it's engaging. And those emails make sense to me. And that's how they keep you as a customer. So basically, CERKL, which is the name of this company, is the idea is let's learn about the recipient and tailor communication to that person. That's the high level idea.
Okay. Nice, nice. Now, how did you come up with that name?
Well, being the nerd, this is a good shirt I wore for you today. Being the nerd that I am, the idea and how all these platforms work is they use a concept called machine learning. So what they're doing is they're learning about you individually, and then they're using that learning to tailor how they create an experience for you. And so for me, the idea was of a circle. So if you think about communication 101, there's a feedback loop, right? We put something out, I see how you respond, I refine, I put something else up, I refine based on your response, and then it just creates this feedback loop. So the idea was that is how we should communicate. Communication should be a circle. It should not be linear. It shouldn't be just us screaming at people, here's everything we need you to know. It should be, I'm going to throw things out, but I need to know how you respond to that thing that I threw out. So that's where the name came from, was the idea of a feedback loop.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now, if there are some customers out there that are interested in your product and how can they get in touch with you and follow what your company's up to?
Yeah, so where we really focus is on enterprise communication. So the idea of why isn't the communication that we put out to an employee within our organization tailored to them? And so we really focus on kind of how do big companies communicate with their employees, and why isn't that tailored across every channel, just like it is with Netflix? And why are we forcing you to see content you've already engaged with? So if you think about, and I don't know if you ever worked in a big company, normally the way they work is that they'll put out communication in one channel, email, and then they'll put it on the internet, and then maybe there's a mobile app, and then they put it in signage, and it's like 10 different channels have the same message. But what if I've already seen it? Why do I have to see the same thing I've already seen when I open the email? I've already consumed that piece of content. So the idea then becomes, how do you take that technology one step further? How do you make each channel tailored to Terrell? And how do you get the channels to talk to each other? So if you've consumed something on the internet, why would we send that to you in an email? That doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of our employees' time. Mm-hmm. And we don't treat them with the same respect that we treat our customer, right? You would never do that to a customer. So why would we do that to an employee? So that's really our focus. But if people are interested, they can just go out to CERKL.com. Of course, great website, of course, marketing, but it really talks to how we solve some of these problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is a very common problem. So I remember when, my years of working at General Electric, you were just inundated by the amount of information that was thrown at you. From if you go to the company's intranet site, and just the amount of information that was there, to where it's just like, this part is relevant. And then I worked in the aviation division, so there were times there were updates about oil and gas, or there were updates about healthcare, and I'm like, that doesn't directly pertain to me. I mean, it may be good information to know, but there was never really a great way to really sort it all out to say, okay, what do I need to know, or what's most relevant to me, without having to spend hours going through everything. And what most people ended up doing is they just stopped doing it because they're like, hey, I have a full-time job to do. I don't have time to go sort through all this. So yeah, I think that is definitely a great tool.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what we're seeing, and it's all companies, all industries, all different sizes. They struggle with the same thing. So even with massive companies like GE, where you would think, oh, they've got all the resources, they don't have enough communicators to be able to really tailor. Imagine going to the intranet, that morning, and it's Terrell, these are the 3 things you need to know.
Wow.
It's literally for you. These are the 3 things that were targeted to you that you have yet to see. And then you click on one of them and you read it. And then you go to Starbucks and you're going to grab your coffee and you've got your mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
You pull up your mobile app and it says, Terrell, there's still 2 things you need to see. Because we know you already consumed one of them when you were in the office. Now you're in line, you're in mobile, and you clicked on another one. Great. And then you get an email that is built just for you that says, Terrell, there's 1 thing you need to see. Because you consumed 2 others in 2 different channels. So the email is going to go through and say, hey, there's still some things you were supposed to see. And you decide when you want that email to come. So if you want it Saturday at 7 a.m., because that's the time you want to catch up and see what you might have missed from the week, that's when it will show up. So everything is about tailoring it to the employee. So we make sure that you have what you need to be successful doing your job. And we want it to learn, hey, Terrell's really also interested in community service. Mm-hmm. So this story about community service, that should be high priority for him because his behavior tells us that's something he cares about. So it is about how do we make the most and best use of an employee's time. I don't want you to see the same things you've already seen. I want you to get the information you need to do your job. And I also want to know what you care about so we as a company can help with that. So that's how we think holistically about changing that entire experience.
Okay, awesome. Now, before we wrap up, one question that I ask all the guests that come onto the show is, in your journey of developing businesses, starting businesses, and helping businesses grow, what's been 1 or 2 pieces of wisdom that you've learned that have just stood out to you?
I think there's a number of misconceptions about entrepreneurship. So one of them we've already talked about, which is this motivation by money. I think you have to have the right motivation to be successful. I think you have to love solving problems. So I think those we've already talked about. Another one would be that you have to be right all the time. And so I'm almost never right. I'm wrong so much of the time. But what happens is if you're an entrepreneur, really anyone, and ego gets in the way, you can't admit that you've made a mistake because you think it'll look and reflect poorly upon you and people will lose respect for you. You'll never be successful. You need, because as an entrepreneur and you're trying to stand something up, time is your most valuable asset. If you have made a mistake, you have to fix it right away. If you made a bad hire, if you took the company in the wrong direction, listen, we will all make mistakes. It is the fact that you can get ego out of the way and you say, I made a mistake here, but I'm going to fix it, as opposed to hide it, cover it up, let it drag on, because now you're working against yourself. If time is your most valuable asset, what are you doing? You're wasting time because of your ego. So that probably would be the biggest learning I've had in doing this for 20 something years, 23 years, being an entrepreneur. And I'm still, it's every day, this idea of killing ego. Just put yourself out there. You have to have some of that to be an entrepreneur in the first place. But with your employees and your culture and your investors and your business partners, to be able to be honest and get ego out of the way, I think helps you grow personally and professionally. But it's really difficult. Society does not want you. That's not normal. It is not normal to get rid of ego and to just be totally open to feedback and criticism, because what happens is if you shut yourself off to it, you're shutting yourself off to growth. I can't possibly get better if I'm afraid to accept criticism. If you would agree with me that our biggest opportunities for growth are when we are failing or learning or something wasn't successful, that is when you grow the most. Ego gets in the way of that learning. And so I've been on a crusade last couple of years, really personally, but also with our team and our company to get rid of ego for everyone, personally and professionally, and have a culture where I can ask you anything, you can ask me anything. It's all about getting to the best result as fast as we can versus how you look. That is a difficult thing to do, but doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Absolutely. Now, in your crusade to do that, have there been any books or resources that you've come across that have like really helped like turn the light bulbs on for you and people on your team?
No, it really comes from just a fundamental philosophy is I just want to get a little bit better every day. In
Mhm.
some area, I just want to improve a little bit. And if I can just move the needle a little bit every day, and I keep doing that, you've got this compounding interest effect in terms of what's your growth. So how this started was a couple years ago, I'm thinking about why do we exist? Right, super deep questions, and I'm thinking, why am I here? What is my point? And I came to the realization that really my point of being here is I want to, here's where I am as a human being, and maybe this is my potential. This is where I could become. If I did everything great and whatever, I maxed out. If you believe, like I believe, that the most amount of growth comes when you fail and you learn, and that leads you to the most amount of growth, right? You might be doing your show for the first time. You don't really know what you're doing, but you learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you never took the chance to do your first show, you would miss out on all this learning. And now you're talking to me and you've done a bunch of these shows and it's super polished, but all that came from learning. Oh, I screwed that up the first time or whatever the second time. That is all closing the gap for you, right? And what happens is if you're unwilling to accept feedback and criticism, this slows down because you're not really hearing what's going on, what's wrong, and opportunities to improve. So that's how the whole thing began. So I haven't really been kind of reading anything or doing any of that self-help stuff. It's just been me thinking personally, what is standing in the way of me reaching my full potential? It is ego is the only thing or the biggest thing that is preventing me from growing as much as I can in whatever time I have on this earth. Super deep. I don't even know how we got into this topic, but I think it's helpful advice for people personally, but also professionally, especially if you're running a business. Get yourself out of your own way.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think to your point, like I said, that getting ego out of the way, because even when the very first I did a video about it on, people would tell me, I was like, oh, your videos look pretty nice. I want to do that. And I always tell them, it's like the first 20 videos that I did were absolutely horrible.
Right?
I mean, they were awful. I was like, and to be honest with you, the first 10, no one will ever see those. Like, I didn't even let my wife see them. I was like, I remember when she recommended the idea of, hey, we should do a show kind of, because our background is accounting and finance. So she was like, hey, there's some things you can share there. And so I was like, all right. So I would come home and go in the basement, set up my camera, and I would film it. And then I'd go back and watch it like, this is horrible. So the first 10 videos, she hasn't even seen those to where I just, like I said, kept learning and kept watching, and evaluating myself. And like I said, that as I began to say, hey, you know what, I'm not afraid to go through the process of improving and lower my ego, that progression, as you said, of moving closer to your potential, it just
Yeah.
started to speed up. So I completely agree.
Yeah. And it's the idea is if you don't feel uncomfortable, you're not growing. So if you've gotten to the point where this is so easy for me or your job is so easy for you and you aren't growing anymore. So what is the next thing that you could do? How do you challenge yourself where you're always learning, you're always taking risk, you're always feeling uncomfortable? Because when you feel that discomfort, that means you are growing. It's like if you go to the gym, right? If your muscles don't hurt, you're not growing. It's the exact same idea. And so I know a lot of people that they go to the gym and it's like they've got the routine, they do it, they're not pushing themselves. They've just, that's good. They walk away. Are you sore? No, I feel great. That's not that's not helping you. You know what I'm saying? You're just maintaining. So you will stay here, but you'll never get here unless you feel discomfort. And so that's what, I see out of you, and I see a lot of entrepreneurs exhibiting those traits. And they get to a point where you do this enough, feeling comfortable feels weird. It feels like I'm wasting time, right? I could be doing something more effective with my time. Always challenging yourself. And so that's a lot of it. If I could give people feedback, is you're never going to be right all the time. You're never going to have all the answers. You're going to make lots of mistakes. But as long as you are personally and professionally improving a little bit every day, that means getting rid of ego and being happy when you feel uncomfortable instead of avoiding it. You look forward to it. That association of discomfort with growth, when you start that mind, something will shift in your mind where society has taught you discomfort is bad, right? The goal of life is to be happy and you never have any problems, and you sit on a beach and drink Coronas. That's probably a bad beer choice right now. You drink Heineken or whatever. That's the goal of life. I'm like, no, that is not the goal of life. If that is the case, you have stopped growing. What, you're never going to have any problems? That doesn't make any sense to me. The goal of life is I want to be uncomfortable all the time, because that means I'm growing all the time. But society doesn't teach us this. It's something that you just kind of uncover. And I think entrepreneurs get there faster than other people because they don't have a choice.
Awesome. Well, definitely thank you for the wisdom, and thank you for talking about your business. And for all the listeners and the watchers out there, definitely visit the website. And that website again is
So that's CERKL.com, CERKL.com.
Awesome. Well, definitely check out the website, especially all the business owners that are listening, for being able to, like I said, take that communication within your company to the next level and make it more effective. CERKL is definitely a great option for you guys. So Tarek, thank you so much for being on the show. All the best with your business, and we'll continue to keep an eye and see how your businesses continue to succeed, and all the other entrepreneurial ventures that you get into as well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you making time and having me on the show.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.